Marvel and DC, it's assembly line work. So there are lots of artists doing it. And I think it wasn't until the late 70s, 80s, when they started giving the creators bylines, so to speak. Right? Up until then, until like Alan Moore and company, it would just be Marvel Comics Presents or something. So one difference was it was assembly line work. You didn't get much artist credit. It has the inventor, the creator. You didn't really own, I don't think they owned their copyright. And so that really got a lot of the artists irritated. The other is the independent world. It's not assembly line. It's usually you are both the artist and the writer of your work. So Tomino does his own illustrations and the writing, where like even Sandman, Gaiman just writes that, and he has different illustrators for each one. So if you were working with an independent house, you could be independent. It could be your own creation.
A lot of the stuff that built the basis of the Marvel Comics we know today, Stan would frequently say, okay, next month's issue, the Fantastic Four fight the Mole Men or something like that. And Jack Kirby would go off and draw the entire thing, and then Stan and leave space, and then Stan would put in word balloons. Also, this is a time when I think there started to be more awareness of the way early creators just got completely screwed over. In the late 70s, they had the whole thing blow up when the first Superman movie came out. People actually started talking about how Siegel and Schuster basically got a check for $100 or whatever, and then DC and Warner Brothers went on to make $1 billion off of Superman. Stan made that very strident issue about Norman Osborn's kid doing drugs, and they weren't going to let it go out under the Comics Code, and so Stan sent it out without the Comics Code seal, and that was like a historic thing. After that, it was sort of one of those things where people paid attention to it if they felt like it, or they didn't pay attention to it if they did it. They started to bring out mature lines like Vertigo or separate graphic novels that go like Void Indigo that could be a little more violent.
Mid-80s is usually seen as a launching point, as a kind of revitalization in the mainstream of graphic novels. So Sandman is starting to run then. Watchmen comes out then, Dark Knight Return comes out, Mouse is there, and all of a sudden there's this momentum around it for a decade, and then it kind of wanes a little bit.
There's the formal complexity of Watchmen is so foregrounded with the grid layout and the callbacks and all that sort of thing, so it provided an entree for people interested in that kind of formal play and interested in more mature themes, and showed that you could build this type of resonance out of the leftovers of kiddie culture. A lot of those ones they did in the 80s, they were a different format than your regular comic, right? They were wider and taller. And they seemed to be kind of an attempt to sort of borrow the aesthetics of the European comics, which American publishers have been trying to do for forever. There must have been somebody in the industry who looked at the way comics are treated in Europe and said, oh, they're treated more respectably because they're treated like albums of artwork. Because in a lot of those, the style was more like a painted style. Something like the John J. Muth one, the Dracula one, which is the type of artwork that would never get into a monthly comic. They had such an obvious formula that worked so well for a number of years and then ended in bankruptcy that I think something like trying to nurture a unique vision has to get swept aside in a corporate culture like that. Why have somebody working on an original graphic novel when he can think up another way to do a die-foil cover? If you're selling 5 million copies of single issues, you've got to think, well, why even bother with this other stuff? We'll just repackage this with 6 other issues and we'll sell 1 million copies of that.